What's up, pagan people? Drew here. I want to talk about labels. I have discussed labels on my channel a few times in different videos, but in order for me to get to my evolution and the way that I am choosing to label myself currently and how that has changed, I just want to briefly touch on my general ideas and thoughts and opinions on labels. So there is debate in the world at large about whether or not labels are a good thing. Are they good? Are they bad? I happen to be one of those people that does not see black and white. There are all these varying shades of gray in between. This existence is very complicated, and rarely is it so simple that it's just yay or nay. For me, labels are both good and bad. For example, when I first began to actively walk my spiritual path, consciously walk it, I was in a not so good place. I was wounded. I was weak. I was scared. And I was questioning my own contact with reality. I was wondering if I wasn't, in fact, having some sort of mental or psychotic breakdown. Legitimately, no joke. And when I found the label that I chose for myself, it was like a breath of fresh air, a sigh of relief. It was so empowering. It gave me a place to direct everything. It gave me a new understanding of myself and what was happening to me. It gave me a direction to travel toward, places to look, things to research, to learn, to grow. I don't know what would have happened to me had I not found that label. And then not long after, I stumbled into witchcraft. And here was another label and a practice, another part of my path that was also very empowering, and held this sort of sense of coming home for me, coming more into myself. So in this way, for me and for many others, labels were a blessing. Having labels was such an empowering, beautiful, wonderful thing. I am so grateful for. There are going to be many other reasons why having labels and using labels, labeling oneself, could be of benefit. There are also going to be many, many, many reasons why it's not. And for probably at least consciously for the past 6 months, I believe probably longer than that, because I think by the time something comes into our consciousness, it's already been, energetically filtering in, softly nudging us for probably quite some time. But at least for the past 6 months, I have become aware that my labels did not fit any longer. They were uncomfortable. And there are various reasons for why they were uncomfortable, which I'll get into. When I first began my path, I ended up, without going into too much detail about how that unfolded, I have a couple videos in my library, as it were, of the story behind how I got to where I am. I'll link one of those just in case anyone's interested in specifics. But basically, I came to a place of self-realization through traumatic life events, led me to the idea and understanding that I was shaman. And that was hugely beneficial and helpful to me. But then later, after many, many years of identifying as such and as a witch, I began to question the validity of that term, and I decided that I would change it to I am a practicing witch on a shamanic path, because I didn't feel that I was doing what I needed to be doing in my life. I was not actively going out and doing healing work and things like this. Okay, just all the things I could be doing that would garner that label, shaman. However, I still believe that the path is shamanic, whether I'm actually actively working as a shaman. And I don't mean working as in necessarily getting paid, though you could, whatever. I just mean doing a shaman's work. So my label shifted slightly. I actually have a video where I talk about that too. So if anybody's interested in that thought process, I'll try to remember to leave a link to that as well. There was also a shift with my labeling as far as witchcraft went as well. In the beginning, it was just witch, but then over time, I adopted the title eclectic witch. Now, I am an eclectic person. In my real life, my style as far as like fashion goes, I would say is pretty eclectic. Now, that might not be reflected in what I wear because I can't afford to just go out and buy everything I want. I have to be picky and choosy about what I actually buy, and it also has to do with what I have at my disposal. I like to shop. I prefer to shop for clothes in person rather than online, because any woman will tell you that clothes don't fit each woman the same. We're all built a bit differently. Even though it might not be reflected in what I wear, the clothes that I'm attracted to, it's very eclectic. The music that I listen to is also extremely eclectic. I would even say that the people I make real meaningful friendships with, that's an eclectic mix of people and attitudes, personalities, ages, styles, thought processes, everything. I think that in most areas of my life, in general, I'm eclectic. And I actually think that that's a compliment. Having said that, this is something that Amber Moon, Witch of Solstice, did a recent video on, and she touched on, which I thought was pretty synchronistic. When we choose these labels for ourselves that we feel define us and that we connect with or whatever, there are other people who are going to read our labels and interpret them for themselves. And some people have an interpretation of eclectic that it's not nice, it's unflattering, and it's just not pleasant. In the video I just mentioned, she talked about how she's a hedge witch. And there are people who, for whatever reason, think that a hedge witch is a green witch. And that's just it, purely. And there's nothing else to that. And there's a lot more to that. These labels are open to interpretation. We each have ideas and thoughts and feelings, and we apply them liberally as we see fit. And the term, this has about 6 months ago or better, the term eclectic witch, I'd say November or December of last year, the term eclectic witch became uncomfortable to me. I don't feel that that term is specific exactly, and it's such a term that anybody can interpret it pretty much any way they want. And I didn't feel it was adding anything. It wasn't telling me or anyone else anything of value about myself. And this all started with this discomfort at other people defining that word for me, but it evolved into something much different. I haven't decided to quit identifying as an eclectic witch because other people define it however. It's just that other people defining it however they define it brought my attention to the term. And I really started thinking about it and how that felt. And I started thinking about my labels. And my labels felt uncomfortable. They felt too small. I felt like a hermit crab in a shell that no longer fit. And so I am shedding those labels. I do not identify as eclectic witch. I'm a witch. I'm not a green witch. I'm not a cosmic witch. I'm not a hearth witch. I'm not a kitchen witch. I'm not a sea witch. I'm a witch. I know that people want these specifics or whatever, but I don't really care what other people want. I don't care. I am a witch. That's what I am. Well, what does that mean? What do you do? Well, I do the witchcraft. That's what I do. Whatever that looks like that day, that's what it is. That feels so free and so inclusive and expansive. I can grow and change and do whatever I want. I am not restricted in any way. And it's the same for the shamanic path statement. Again, other people have an idea of what that is. And that's kind of ridiculous in and of itself because there are so many practices that fall under this, what has in modern times become a sort of umbrella term that is shamanism, that it's really ridiculous. I mean, you can get a basic idea. It's just like pagan, okay? I get a basic idea of what you're talking about, but like there are so many specific things that can fall under that term that are different from each other. If you get what I'm saying. It's too tight. It doesn't fit right. Having said that, real quick, I still believe that the term eclectic witch describes me. And I still believe the term shamanic, like the shamanic path, applies and describes my path accurately. I feel that way about both of those things. But whether I called myself an eclectic witch or any other kind of witch, I was still a witch. Both could be true. Both are true. I decide I'm identifying as witch. Screw all the other labels. The same with my path. My husband's path is more ceremonial, and he is very much, just as the shamanism is like in me, like alchemy is in him. And if you've looked into alchemy at all, you'll see that traditionally the alchemists were male, but that they would often have a female assistant, if you would, who was their mystica. And my husband has always said that I am his mystica, and that is true. My path is a mystical path. I am a mystic. I am in direct connection with spirit, and that's how I operate. So this is my new term, my new label. I am a witch. I am a mystic, mystical witch, whatever. Instead of saying I'm an eclectic witch and my path is shamanic, and having everybody decide for me what that means and trying to push that on me, trying to push that about me, I have decided I'm a witch. I'm a mystic. My path is mystical. These are a bit harder to define. Of course, they can be defined, but they are such broad, encompassing, wide open terms. And honestly, at the end of the day, it has nothing to do with anyone else. It was inspired by outside noise, but upon bringing it into myself and thinking about it and sitting with it and mulling it over, this feels amazing to me. This very, in my mind, sort of generic terms. You know, there was a time when I really needed those specific terms. I needed those. I would have been so lost without them. But I'm not in that space anymore, and actually haven't been for some time. They didn't fit anymore. I don't need them anymore. Now I need to be more free to be whatever it is I'm going to be in any given moment. I think that the way we talk to ourselves is very important. The way we talk to others about ourselves is important. I'm going to use the example if we talk, negative chatter, negative self-talk brings down our self-esteem and our confidence and our ability to do things. It's very limiting. This is how I feel about the labels. They were empowering until they weren't. They became limiting. And so I'm shedding them and letting them go. And I will not talk to myself in those terms anymore. Not that they're not true, not that they're not there. I'm still the same as I was in that regard, but I want to become more than that. So I will no longer talk to myself in those terms, and I will no longer talk to others about myself in those terms. Drew is a witch. She is a mystic. And that may change the way that I label myself, and I actually kind of hope it does change, because that to me speaks of a continued evolution on my path. Anyway, this isn't to evoke any kind of reaction out of anyone. Like, I'm not trying to get anything out of anyone. This is just me walking through this part of my journey. It's important to me. It's important to my spiritual path, to my magical practice, and my everyday life. And because I'm on this platform and I share these kind of things, I came to share it with you and to talk it out with you. So, if you have a comment, good or bad, then I would love to hear it. But I'm not doing this to influence or change or, spark anything. Honestly, this is just me going through my stuff and sharing that with you. So thank you for hanging out and listening to me babble on about the significance of labels in my path as it stands. And until next time, much love and gratitude.